Some people are born into the world with a silver spoon. Others, it seems, are born with a spanner in their hand and engine oil coursing through their veins. Enzo Ferrari was one of the latter. He wasn't from some grand Florentine dynasty or a Roman senatorial family. No, he was from Modena, a place famous at the time for little more than its balsamic vinegar, some rather good sausages. It was a humble provincial town, the sort of place where ambition was a quiet affair. But quiet was never a word you'd associate with Enzo. He was a boy with fire in his belly from the very start. His father, Alfredo, was a man of metal. He ran a metalworking business, a foundry supplying the railways, fire, hammers, sweat. Young Enzo would spend hours there watching sparks fly, listening to the rhythmic clang of steel on steel. He learned a fundamental truth. You could bend metal to your will. Just as Enzo's world was beginning to take shape around his singular passion for speed, the world itself decided to fall apart. The Great War erupted, a cataclysm that ripped Europe to shreds and demanded a generation of its young men. Italy joined the fray, the Ferrari family was swept up in patriotic fervor and the grim reality of conflict. Enzo's older brother, Alfredo Jr., Dino, was sent to the front. He was the sensible one, the heir apparent to the family business. Enzo, still a teenager, was left behind, his racing dreams put on hold. Then, as the war ground toward its brutal end, an even more insidious enemy arrived. Not an army, but the silent, invisible Spanish flu. In 1916, the pandemic swept through the Ferrari household. First, it took his father. The man who'd shown him metal and racetracks was gone. The patriarch who anchored the family vanished. The noise of the family foundry fell silent, echoing profound emptiness. Shortly after his father's death, the same illness claimed his brother. Dino succumbed while serving in the military. A double hammer blow, a 1-2 punch of grief. In months, Enzo's world was demolished. No longer a boy with racing dreams, he was a son without a father, a brother without a brother. The future he'd imagined was gone, replaced by a bleak, uncertain present. This loss became the crucible forging Enzo Ferrari. Carefree youth burned away. The emotional toll of this period on Enzo Ferrari cannot be overstated. He was a young man forced to carry the burdens of a middle-aged patriarch. While others his age were perhaps thinking of courtship or chasing frivolous pursuits, Enzo was consumed by the stark reality of debt and responsibility. The weight on his shoulders was immense. He had to be the rock for his grieving mother to project a strength and resolve that he may not have always felt inside. This experience hollowed out a part of him, replacing youthful idealism with a steely, almost grim, pragmatism. He learned early that sentimentality was a luxury he could not afford. This internal transformation was profound. The world, as he now saw it, was not a place of grand opportunity, but a brutal arena, where you had to fight for every inch of ground. He developed a hard outer shell, a defensive mechanism to protect the wounded young man within. People would later describe him as cold. After the soul-crushing rejection from Fiat and the string of dead-end jobs, a sliver of light finally pierced Enzo's gloomy world. He found his way into a small, obscure car company in Milan called Costruzioni Meccaniche Nazionali, or CMN. It wasn't Fiat, it wasn't Lancia, but it was a car company. And for Enzo, that was everything. His first proper job in the automotive world wasn't as a designer or an executive. It was as a test driver. His role was to take the bare chassis converted from old truck bodies and drive them to a coach builder in Milan to have bodies fitted. It was a glorified delivery job, but with a crucial difference. He was behind the wheel. This was more than just a job. It was an education. Bouncing along the rough post-war Italian roads, he learned the feel of a car in its rawest form. Enzo's performance at CMN, both as a sharp-witted test driver and a spirited racer, caught the attention of the big boys. In 1920, he received an offer that would change his life. He was invited to join Alfa Romeo, one of the most prestigious and powerful racing teams in the world. This was the big league. The Alfa Romeo badge, the coiled serpent of the Visconti family, was a symbol of speed and engineering excellence. For Enzo, moving from the plucky underdog CMN to the dominant force of Alfa Romeo, it was the validation he had been fighting for. He wasn't just a driver, he became an integral part of the team. He worked with legendary engineers like Vittorio Jano, absorbing every detail of car design and engine technology. He wasn't the fastest driver on the grid. He lacked the reckless abandon of some of his contemporaries like Tazio Nuvolari, Achille Varzi. Enzo was a thinking man's racer. Motor racing in the 1920s and 30s was a blood sport. It was glorious, it was thrilling, and utterly lethal. The cars were brutally powerful. The tracks were unforgiving public roads, lined with trees and stone walls. Safety measures were, to put it mildly, non-existent. Drivers were modern-day gladiators. The adoring public knew that any race could be their last. For Enzo, this grim reality was not abstract. It was deeply personal. He saw friends perish. He saw teammates perish. The sport he loved was a voracious monster that devoured its own. The death of his close friend Ugo Savocci in 1923 at Monza was a brutal blow. Savocci's Alfa, for the first time, did not bear his lucky number 17. It skidded off the track and killed him instantly. The loss was profound for Enzo. In 1931, Enzo was slated to race the Circuito del Tre Provence. By this time, his son, Alfredo Dino Ferrari, had been born. As he prepared to race, he looked at his young son. The full weight of his own mortality came crashing down. He saw the pattern repeating, and he could not bear it. In that moment, he made a decision. He pulled out of the race, and he never raced again. He officially retired as a racing driver. Not because he had lost his nerve, but because he had gained a new perspective. He could no longer justify the personal risk. The ghosts of his past were too loud, the love for his son too strong. The joy of racing had been extinguished by the fear of loss. He walked away from the cockpit, but he did not walk away from the sport. His role was about to change, from participant in the deadly game to its ultimate master. Stepping out of the driver's seat did not diminish Enzo's influence. It magnified it. Freed from the singular focus of racing, his brilliant, strategic mind could now take a wider view. He persuaded Alfa Romeo to let him run their racing division not as a simple department, but as his own semi-independent team. In 1929, he had already founded Scuderia Ferrari, the Ferrari stable. Initially, it was a team for wealthy gentlemen racers who wanted to compete in Alfa Romeos. Now, it became the de facto racing arm of Alfa Romeo itself, with Enzo as its undisputed leader, its Drake. This was Enzo in his element. He was a puppet master, a conductor of a grand high-octane orchestra. He hired the best drivers, Tazio Nuvolari and Achille Varzi, often playing their fierce egos against each other to extract maximum performance. He worked with the most brilliant engineers, pushing them relentlessly to find more power, more speed, better handling. Scuderia Ferrari, under his command, dominated the racing world. They were the team to beat. The Alfa Romeos, prepared and run by his Modena-based team, were painted in a now famous shade of red, Rosso Corsa, the racing color of Italy. But working under the umbrella of Alfa Romeo had its frustrations. Enzo had his own ideas, his own vision for what a racing car should be. The terms of his departure included a clause that forbade him from using the Ferrari name in connection with racing or cars for 4 years. It was meant to neuter him, to keep him from becoming a competitor, but it was a futile gesture. You cannot forbid a volcano from erupting. Enzo immediately founded a new company, Auto Avio Costruzioni, in his old Modena headquarters. He was finally his own man. The dream of building a car, a true Ferrari, was about to become a reality. Enzo Ferrari's story is not a simple rags-to-riches tale. It is a testament to the indomitable power of the human will in the face of overwhelming tragedy. The empire he built was not founded on a clever business plan or inherited wealth. It was founded on grief. The devastating loss of his father and brother was the cataclysm that set his life on its unyielding trajectory. It was a foundation of steel grit and sorrow.